There's a lot that we don't talk about, sometimes due to embarrassment, fear, insecurities. We neglect discussions about the most common parts of our lives, things we all deal with, sometimes every day. But on the Caffeinated Gypsy podcast, together, we'll break all of those taboos and talk open and honest about shared experiences. Knowledgeable people relating things you felt but never put into words. Parenting, sex, fitness, energy, anything to connect you to your authentic self, unfiltered. Now, the Caffeinated Gypsy herself, a free spirit, world traveler with a passion for fitness and exploring topics that others might avoid. Welcome to the Caffeinated Gypsy podcast. I'm Stephanie Cotton, your host. All right, y'all. So this week we are going into week 4 of the root chakra from my chakra workbook, Light It Up. I found it strangely, I don't know if difficult's the word I would describe, but it's been challenging just to really stick with this go around. And I don't know if it is just, there's a lot of stuff that's been going on astrologically, or if it's just my personal life, but I've kind of, struggled with this a little bit. So I don't know if you're experiencing something similar, but just, I think it's good to hear sometimes when it's not super easy for everybody. But yeah, so this week is the final week with the root chakra. And once we finish this week, we're going to be going into the sacral chakra. So, this root chakra, I know I've talked about this before, but it's one of those things, it can take a long time to heal this. So if you're working on this and you're like, ugh, it's not completely there, no worries. Feel free to reach out for me for any type of coaching session with this. I've been working with people for a really long time on working with their chakras, but I spend a lot of time working one-on-one with people to open up their root chakra and really to just kind of start to process all the trauma. So if you're kind of sitting there with all this stuff coming out of the root chakra, definitely reach out to me. I would be happy to work with you one-on-one and maybe kind of guide you in other ways that you can start to really process everything, because as we've talked about before, the root chakra really does, it holds so much stuff, and sometimes when we start to unpack the root, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So please, by all means, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to work with you, and we can always work via Skype or something like that. So this week, the final week, the mantra for this week is I attract healthy relationships. So our root chakra is really what sets the base up for all of the relationships that we have from the beginning to, adulthood. And this is, for me, why I take parenting so seriously, is because I know that the relationships that you form as a child really do set the patterns that we have through adulthood. So as I've talked about this before, but especially if we see things like our parents leaving or we see abusive relationships, those are our subconscious patterns that we see, and those are really what kind of imprint on us. So we tend to carry that over into adulthood until we recognize that, and we are able to recreate new patterns and start to correct some of that. So I think it's really important as parents that we are thinking about this, because a lot of times people don't realize that even though children may not say anything, the relationships that we are modeling are definitely having a huge impact on them and the relationships they're going to have into adulthood. So this week we have a physical activity, and the physical activity for this week is to go dance. And I really love this because I feel like when we talk about the root chakra, it's very serious, right? And it's serious, it's deep, but to really move that energy and get it out, dancing is a great way. And a lot of times when we're kind of stuck in this trauma, we don't necessarily do really fun things. So I think dancing is a really great way. It's a really good way to connect with yourself and to kind of find that rhythm in your own body. So go grab some girlfriends and go out for a dance. Or if you're not comfortable with that, turn the music up in the house and just let go and see what your body does, and then notice how you feel. It can be a very liberating experience, and I highly encourage people to do this on a regular occurrence. And then our journal assignment for this week was to write about what makes you feel safe, grounded, and secure in the world. So in order for things to really start to change in your life, you have to make the decision to take ownership over what's going on in your life. And you also want to take ownership over the fact that you need to have and start a spiritual practice. So this means that we need to start thinking about what's working for us? What are we doing that's helping our life? Or what are we doing that's not working for us, in order to really support this process of opening and clearing out our root chakra. And what I find a lot of times with the root chakra is people like to talk about it a lot, right? People will even pay me to sit down and evaluate their chakras and give them a plan. And then we meet back up and they're like, I've done nothing. And I'm always like, okay. And that's okay, because I know that seed has been planted. But unfortunately, with the root chakra, with any of our chakras, it's not enough to just talk about it. It's not enough to just know about it. We have to actually put things into action. And that means evaluating and looking at what's working and what's not working in my life. And really starting to take hold of what's making me feel safe. And is it making me feel safe because it's good for me, or is it making me feel safe because I'm just comfortable with it? So I always tell people that you want to kind of start from your inward environment out. So looking at things like the relationships that we have. Are these relationships supporting us? Are they allowing us to feel safe? Our relationships with our body. Are we doing things that are encouraging us to feel safe within our body? Are we doing things to support our body? Our food, are we eating things that make us feel safe, or are we eating things out of what we perceive is comfort? There's a lot of ways that we start to look at what helps us feel grounded and what makes us feel secure in the world. So I encourage you to really take some time and evaluate this. And it may even be that this is something that you're doing over a period of time. It's not necessarily going to be something that you maybe do in a week. And I think it's something that definitely evolves. I know I personally have these aha moments still where I'm like, oh, that made me feel really unsafe, or that really made me feel insecure, or whatever. And, there's patterns that I have that are deeply ingrained in me that I've had to really break, and I've had to create new patterns for my own safety. And when I tend to get stressed out, or life tends to kind of throw me curveballs, I automatically will revert back to those old patterns, and I have to kind of do a self-check-in and be like, oh, okay, I feel unsafe. Well, what's going on in my life that I feel unsafe? Do I have people around me that make me feel unsafe? Have I put myself in situations where I don't feel safe? Am I eating food that makes me feel unsafe or insecure in this world? So it's not necessarily something that, is cut and dry. And I tell people too, when you're doing this, it's not always easy to just cut things out. It's really easy for me to sit here and be like, okay, it's time to take the trash out. Let's start weeding things out. But it's not as simple as just doing that sometimes. Sometimes we have to start with the little things, and we have to go, okay, this relationship's not working for me right now, but am I ready to actually let go of that? Maybe you're not. And there's no shame in that. Just know that once you acknowledge it, it's kind of hard to unacknowledge it. So that is always going to be there in the back of your mind until you finally cut that cord. So you're never really going to progress in your healing journey until you cut out those relationships, or you make the decision that you're going to heal and you're not going to allow those relationships to affect you emotionally. And there are people that are absolutely able to do that. It's very difficult, but There are people that are able to just say, I'm going to have you in my life, but I'm not going to allow you to affect me emotionally or energetically. But for most people, it does come down to we have to kind of start cutting out those relationships. And, those are all relationships. It could be our relationships with our family. It could be our relationships with our friends. It could be our jobs. There's a lot of ways that these things kind of creep in, because remember, we're looking at really old patterns, and these patterns have set up the tone for our whole entire life. So as you are wrapping up this week, once again, I just want to encourage you to dig into your root chakra. Continue to do this. Continue to check in. I am in the process of working on a course. I don't have a release date. My goal is kind of beginning of the year. I'd really like to get this out for everybody, but it's going to be a fairly extensive root chakra course, just dealing with the root, where we're going to be able to have a small group of people come together, and we're going to go through a lot of different ways that we can work with our root chakra. I'm putting together recipes, so food to support you. We're going to look at essential oils. We're going to look at crystals. We're going to look at meditation, movement practices, and kind of create a plan for you to really dig in and really start to get a very secure root. So that is definitely coming. And once again, if you're ready to just jump into this and you need help, you can always go to my website, stephanie-cotton.com, shoot me a message, and we can set up a consult, and we can go ahead and start working on this. Because while I'm not a huge New Year's resolution person, I do think that it's a good time to kind of reevaluate and go, okay, what's working for me right now? What do I want to change? What am I trying to do? So if you're really looking at 2019 and you're like, I've got to make some changes, and you just need some support in that, I'm here for you, and I'd love to help you on that journey. And we can do that via Skype or FaceTime or whatever we need to do. All right, y'all. So we're going to wrap up this week of the root chakra, and next week we get into the sacral chakra. So we're going to be talking about our relationship with our body. We're going to be talking about sex, how we connect with ourselves sexually and physically. So it is going to be a really good, juicy podcast, I think. So lots of love to you guys, and best of luck on this healing journey you're on. You're a badass for even doing the work. I just want to tell you that. And yeah, head over to my website. If you have any questions, shoot me a message. Bye.
For all the people who judge without knowing, just throw the peace sign, tell them good vibes only.